Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 21st of May 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the day. And the show, of course, our first segment concerns the Israel-Palestinian conflict and genocide that has been going on since 228 days now. Today, in fact, is the day 228 of that war, that conflict that still rages, despite the fact that many countries have and continue to strive for some kind of a solution or a truce or peace accord between the two factions. Also, the ICC chief prosecutor says he is seeking arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and 3 Hamas leaders. Israel's leadership has been charged with starvation, causing great suffering, willful killing, directing attacks against the civilian population, crimes against humanity of extermination, murder, persecution and other human acts. US President Joe Biden denies that Israel's war in Gaza was genocide and slams as outrageous the request by the ICC prosecutor for an arrest warrant for Israeli leaders. That and more will be discussed in our first segment. Our second story concerns the relationship between Pakistan and Turkiye. Now, we all know that this relationship has been steadfast and strengthening since both the countries started their diplomatic relations. Now, the bilateral annual trade will most probably, as per the aspirations of both the sides, be increasing to $5 billion from the current $1 billion. Also, the defense collaboration of the two countries are going to be intensified. This has been said in the round of meetings that has been held between the Turkish foreign minister and the different Pakistani high-ups that he met, whether it be our foreign minister Ishaq, whether it be our prime minister Shehbaz Sharif, or whether it be our chief of the air staff. Of course, important things have been discussed and different avenues of cooperation have also been underlined. This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about important things. That first of all, we'll be talking about the Iranian president's funeral and Pakistan's mourning. Iran has declared 5 days of mourning in memory of President Dr. Ebrahimraisi, Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullah and other Iranian officials who had been killed in a helicopter crash. Pakistan itself has declared a day of mourning today. All the flags were at half-mast. Also, the federal cabinet has passed a condolence resolution on the martyrdom of Iranian President Sayyid Ibrahim Raisi and his entourage. And of course, the meeting that was chaired by our Prime Minister paid tribute to the Iranian president for his immense services for the promotion of Pakistan-Iran relations. Then we are going to talk about Sirbazkhan, who has successfully peaked Mount Everest without the use of supplemental oxygen. Now, Sirbazkhan has successfully climbed the summit of Mount Everest, which is at 29,031.69 feet without the use of this oxygen. He was part of the Imagine Nepal 2024 Everest expedition team, which included 14 international climbers and 18 Sherpas. He has already climbed 13 of the world's 14 mountains that are higher than 8,000 meters. Then we are going to talk about the International Tea Day, ladies and gentlemen, that is being observed across the world. We all love tea in Pakistan and also in the subcontinent. The theme this year is women and their role in the tea sector. The day provides us an opportunity to celebrate the cultural heritage, health benefits and the economic importance of tea. This is going to be our lineup for today. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Palestine-Israel conflict, war, genocide, ethnic cleansing, you name it, it has happened. And today is day 228 of that. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. Dr. Maleeha Lodhi, she's a former ambassador to the United Nations, and Osama Nazzal, who's a Palestinian journalist who joins us from Jenin. We'll begin with Dr. Maleeha Lodhi. Dr. Sahaba, thank you very much to have joined us. I'd like to understand US President Joe Biden's defense of Israel against the war crime charges in the world top courts, whether it be the ICC or whether it be the ICJ. Of course, these remarks come after Karim Khan, who is the chief prosecutor of the ICC, has demanded the issuance of arrest warrants for both Netanyahu and the defense minister. I'd like to quote what Biden says. He says, "Let me be clear, we reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders, and there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas." And he says that the ICC warrants are outrageous. He also says Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza. How do you view these statements?
Well, for a start, it's no surprise. I mean, it was expected that President Biden, whose administration has supported Israel as it has waged war on Gaza and has done nothing to stop the war. So it's really not a surprise that President Biden has rejected what the ICC prosecutor has said, which is, is the decision to seek arrest warrants against its leaders, Israel's leaders. So, remember, it's also election year in America. So many of Biden's remarks actually in responding to the ICC prosecutor's decision came at a Jewish heritage event. Even otherwise, I think he's more interested in wooing voters right now in his country. But of course, it does reflect America's steadfast, unequivocal support for Israel. If that hadn't been the case, we wouldn't have seen the war entering the 8th month. We wouldn't have seen over 35,000 Palestinians killed in cold blood. We wouldn't have seen the genocide. We wouldn't have seen ethnic cleansing. So really, the U.S. position makes it complicit in what Israel is doing. So I don't see any surprise in what Biden has said. I think the important thing is that this particular request is a big blow to Israel's standing. It is a huge setback for Israel, even though the decision to seek arrest will, of course, it's a request right now. So it will go to the court's pre-trial chamber and a decision will have to be taken in a couple of weeks. So although there is a process that still has to unfold, but for now, what it does is to underline both Israel's isolation in the international community and increasingly its pariah status in the international community.
Dr. Maleeha, I'd also like to understand, the ICC, you know that much better than I do, is the world's first permanent international war crimes court, and its 124 member states are obliged to immediately arrest the wanted person if they are on a member state's territory. We all know that neither the US nor Israel are members of the ICC, nor are some other important countries. Will this impact the ICC decision in your point of view in any way whatsoever?
It won't impact it because the decision is going to be taken on the basis of fact. But your question really is, if such a decision is taken, how will it be implemented? I think that's a good question. So it'll all depend on the 124 members of the ICC, which will be obliged to arrest these people if they come to their countries. But yes, you're right, with the US not being a party to the International Criminal Court, nor is Israel, and actually nor is India, Russia, and China. But in any case, at the moment, I think what that will mean is that if such a decision is taken, it's not likely to be implemented. But I think we should not minimize or underestimate the impact this will have on, as I said before, Israel's position and standing. Huge blow. And at the same time, I think it puts great pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's already under attack in his own country by both the opposition as well as ordinary citizens. I mean, they've been demonstrating for weeks now. So it will put pressure on him because his so-called Gaza initiative, offensive, assault has failed. It was supposed to destroy Hamas. It did not destroy Hamas. It was supposed to secure the release of hostages. It has not done that. What it has done is to impose collective punishment on innocent Palestinian men, women, and children. And it has been a complete violation of international law, an atrocity, and certainly a war crime, because that's the basis on which Karim Khan has made this request for arrest, because he has, for now, held that Israel has committed war crimes.
All right, Dr. Sahiba, kindly stay online with us. We've also been joined by our journalist friend from Jenin. Osama, thank you very much to have joined us. Osama, I'd give you some quotes of what the US lawmakers said as a result of this ICC judgment that came, and of course this request for arrest warrants that has been issued. Tom Cotton, who's a Republican senator, says, my colleagues and I look forward to make sure neither Mr. Khan, his associates or their families ever set foot again in the US. Republican Congressman Anthony Estobio says the ICC was playing with fire. Brian Mast, another Republican, says America doesn't recognize the ICC, but the courts sure as hell will recognize what happens when you target our allies. Blinken says in a statement that the US rejects the ICC prosecutor's application for arrest warrants. Last week also, a spokesperson for the US Department of State had said Washington does not believe the ICC has jurisdiction over the situation in Gaza. Will these US reactions, Osama, prove any kind of hindrance to the ICC decision?
First, thank you very much for having me. Really, the United States administration and the members of the Congress that you mentioned are real allies of Israel in its genocidal campaign against the innocent children and women of Palestine, particularly Gaza. And it was not really weird to hear such statements that come from these congressmen and the statement by the American president just yesterday when he said that what's happening in Gaza is not genocide. This reveals once and again that Israel, that the United States is fully supporting the Israeli crimes and the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip, and they are aiding and abetting the current Israeli occupation government in everything it does against the Palestinian people. We are talking about over 35,000 Palestinians killed and over 79,000 Palestinians injured, and over 10,000 Palestinians are under the rubble. And all these people came to what we talk about now due to the American weapons and the American missiles that are provided to the Israeli occupation in order to complete its mission of ending the existence of the Palestinians in Gaza.
Osama, when you look at the international reactions that come after the prosecutor's decision to issue arrest warrants, and of course this will take some time, whether it be, you know, the Switzerland's UN envoy who says his country fully supports the court and stresses the importance of respecting its independence, France saying that it had long warned of the consequences of violating international humanitarian law, particularly in regards to the unacceptable number of civilians killed in Gaza, although the UK Prime Minister's spokesperson says the ICC decision is not helpful in relation to reaching a pause in the fighting. But Francesca Albanese, who is of course the United Nations representative, says she understands that for the people of war-torn Gaza, the ICC prosecutors' move may appear too little too late, but she says, for me it is historical day. What are, how is the world reacting? We see a lot of mixed reactions from the world over. Will countries, these 124 countries that are part of the ICC, if these arrest warrants are actually implemented, will they accept the ICC decision?
First of all, yes, sure. The decision of the general prosecutor of the ICC is very late. And we all remember during the start of the Ukraine-Russian war, the ICC was in rush really to issue its decision. It took it less than a month to issue its decision regarding the Russian President Vladimir Putin, while Israel has been slaughtering and murdering Palestinian children, women, and old men in Gaza for the 7th month. And just yesterday, the general prosecutor asked the pre-trial chamber of the court to issue the arrest warrant. But anyway, it is really strategic that Israel's real face is revealed now to the whole world, that Israel has never been a democracy in the Middle East. Israel has always been a colonial power that preys on the flesh and the blood of the Palestinian people, that Israel has always been a colonial power that steals the Palestinian land and the natural resources of the Palestinian people and keeps thousands of Palestinians in concentration camps called prisons or detentions, And now the whole world comes to know the reality of Israel, and at the same time exposing the fake narrative of Israel, that it respects human rights and it respects international law. Now, the countries, the colonial powers mainly, that used to support the Israeli occupation in all its practices, of course, are going to be defenders of Israel, starting with the United States President, that we all heard his statement denying the fact that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. We know that the mission of the ICC is not easy, because the United States is against that and other colonial powers could be against that. But we consider that decision as Palestinians as a first step in the right direction towards respecting the international judiciary and the international law, with hope that these war criminals like Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Gallant, and the military echelon of Israel one day will be brought to the court and will be prosecuted for the slaughter of Gaza children and women.
All right, kindly stay on line with us, Osama. We've also got a very important guest on the other line who's with us, Dr. Maleeha Lodhi. There's also a separate case on alleged genocide at the International Court of Justice, which has been brought by South Africa. The third time a case like this has been brought in the International Court of Justice. ICC has a very different repercussion than the ICJ, but it has some kind of an implication nevertheless, even if it's a psychological. What's your take on it?
Look, I think both the International Court of Justice as well as the International Criminal Court taking action against Israel has mounted pressure, and it has shown what I said before, which is the diplomatic isolation of Israel. It has shown Israel up to be a rogue state, to be a pariah state. I think you have to look at that as well as the practical part of it. Now, the practical part of it is going to be problematic. There's no doubt about it. As my brother from Palestine has said, even Putin had been indicted by the ICC, but nothing really happened because it was not implemented, that decision, because Russia is not a party, China is not a party. So wherever Putin goes, those countries are not obliged to do anything because they're not a party to it. So when you say what is the impact of these two international forums, obviously it does affect Israel. But at the same time, I think we have to also bear in mind that this doesn't end the war. What we need is a ceasefire and a permanent ceasefire to actually end the war. And what we find is that the talks or the negotiations that are being brokered by Egypt and Qatar in Cairo, backed by the United States, and the talks are between Hamas and Israel, those talks are in a state of deadlock. They're in stalemate.
Rather. So this has been said by the Qatar's envoy that they are in a state of stalemate as we speak, and this is what he has said today.
Exactly. So if it is in deadlock and stalemate, then there really is at the moment no other diplomatic initiative that can bring this brutal war to an end. And I think that is what is needed. And there again, we have to ask the question whether the United States, by adopting the position that it has adopted, which is blind support for Israel, is complicit in the continuance of this war, which has already claimed so many innocent lives, and of course continues to inflame the entire region and holds the threat. Certainly still it's there that the war can spill over. It can really engulf the whole region.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maleeha Lodhi, to have joined us and to have given us your able point of view as far as this continuous genocide or crimes against humanity are going on in Palestine. Thank you very much, ma'am, to have joined us. Let's revert to Osama Muhammad Nazzal. Osama, Palestinians, and of course I'm sure you yourself as well, recall the Nakba in 1948. And many have warned that Israel's war in Gaza today amounts to a second Nakba. Generations of Palestinians who have grown up hearing the horror stories of the 1948 ethnic cleansing today consider Israel's war as a second take on that Nakba. What's your impression?
Yeah, really what's happening in Gaza today is not a second Nakba, because the first Nakba has not been ended yet. We are talking about ongoing Palestinian Nakba since the invention of the Zionist state of Israel in 1948. And what's happening now is that Israel is killing the children, really, of the Palestinians who were expelled, and some of them were killed in 1948. The situation in Gaza and also in the West Bank these days is really unbearable, and Gaza is no longer inhabitable or suitable for human life, because the Israeli warplanes and the Israeli tanks leveled most of the buildings of Gaza to the ground and left no institutions, no infrastructure, no facilities. You know that most of the hospitals, even in Gaza, were targeted and bombarded by the Israeli occupation, and many of the medical staffs and paramedics were killed by the Israeli occupation forces. So we are talking about genocide and more than genocide. And really, one is wondering how all that happens live streamed before the eyes of the whole world, that it claims it is a civilized world, and Israel is allowed to continue its crimes against the Palestinians. It is really shattering the heart and breaking the soul of every human being.
Thank you very much, Osama Mohammed Nazzal, to have joined us all the way from Jenin. But of course, the situation in Palestine, whether it be in Jenin, whether it be in other parts, whether it be in Rafah, is despicable to say the least. People are in dire need of food, water, medical aid, but the hospitals are being destroyed. We have the whole situation of the Al-Adwa hospital also in Jabalia that has been besieged for 2 days as fighting rages, and the whole situation goes on and on. The people are really cornered in one place. They can't go either back to Gaza. If they go back to Gaza, they are again bombarded by the Israelis, and there also there is no respite from them, because Rafah is also under siege by Israel. Let's hope some sanity prevails. Let's hope really some sanity prevails as far as the world is concerned and the powers that be. Thank you very much, Osama, to have joined us. Let's come to our next story, and that concerns the relationship between Pakistan and Turkiye, which have developed on the basis of close friendship and brotherhood since the establishment of Pakistan on the 14th of August 1947. 2022 marked the 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between these two countries. Now, both the countries on Monday have set their sights on enhancing annual bilateral trade to $5 billion US, besides intensifying their trade in defense collaboration as the two countries prepare for their upcoming high-level bilateral summit. We've been joined by two guests to discuss that. Our first guest is in the studios. He is Dr. Abbas Moosvi, a research fellow with PIDE. Abbas, thank you very much to have joined us, and welcome to our show after quite a long hiatus. And Hassan Abdullah, diplomatic correspondent for TRT World, also joins us from Turkey. Thank you very much, Hassan, to have joined us. Let's begin with you, Abbas. Pakistan and Turkey set their sights on increasing the bilateral trade from $1 billion US to $5 billion US, and this is over a period of the next 3 years. What are the avenues, in your point of view, that can be looked upon to increase this trade and take it to the limit as envisaged by both the leaders?
Thank you so much for having me again, Omar Saab. I know it's been quite a long time. I'm going to start off by making a very basic point, which is that for trade to happen, you need an industry, and for that you need industrial capacity. Now, Pakistan unfortunately went through a process of premature deindustrialization in the 1988 Structural Adjustment Program from the IMF, following which our industry and our industrial capacity has gradually weakened over time. If we look at the situation today in Pakistan, the industries that have developed across the world. If you look at the Asian tigers, for instance, in Southeast Asia and so on, they followed a process that is known as the infant industries model, where the government is heavily involved in improving their capacity through a carrots and sticks approach, where they offer subsidies, they offer assistance in research and development, the acquisition and upskilling of manpower, knowledge exchange programs, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, you have things like protection. We need to be very serious about this, where we protect our industries that are in their infancy stages. We need to support them in that process while they are sort of developing the capacity to become competitive with regional neighbors and the global economy at large. This is a very important point because there's a great example of this in China recently. There's a company called BYD, Build Your Dreams, which is an electric vehicles company, which was very close to bankruptcy up until 2022, but they continue to be supported by the Chinese state. And to this point where today we have folks like Elon Musk, who is very concerned that he's going to lose the global market share in electric vehicles because of the growth in BYD and their sort of success through government support and so on. But for all of this to be possible, there needs to be a professionalized bureaucracy that is overseeing this entire process, right? So civil service reform is a very important component of this. I think it's important to look at the political economy of this.
In order to move forward, this is what you're trying to say with Turkey. Hassan, Abdullah, thank you very much to have joined us all the way from Turkey. Now, in the meeting between the foreign ministers of both the sides, that is Turkey and Pakistan, wherein they reviewed the whole gamut of bilateral relations that exist between the two sides, and of course the specific preparations for the 7th session of the Pakistan-Turkey High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council. Mr. Ishaq Dar also said that this 7th session is going to be held very soon. But what I'd like to understand with respect or referring to this high-level strategic cooperation council as to the importance of the Pakistan-Turkey high-level strategic cooperation council, whose 7th meeting is going to be held very soon and in Pakistan, in the current geopolitical, geoeconomic, geostrategic scenario.
Both countries agreed to work towards a free trade agreement back in 2015. The initial target was to reach $5 billion of bilateral trade volume by 2019 and $10 billion by 2022. Even that first target hasn't been met. So when they met this time around, again, the figure they agreed on was a downgraded figure of $5 billion. There are a number of obstacles that are there. The Pakistani side is concerned about the trade deficit as well when it comes to Turkey. Both sides realize and acknowledge that there's a lot more to be done.
All right, Hassan, when you talk of the different avenues that have been discussed during the meetings of cooperation as far as trade is concerned, there's trade, there's investment, there's technology, and there is defense. Also, security domains is another option that has been discussed. And the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, when he of course talked to the Turkish foreign minister, said that Turkish companies might consider relocating their industrial units to Pakistan. In your point of view, from a Turkish perspective, what measures need to be taken to make all of that happen, this collaboration in trade, investment, defense, security domains, technology, and of course relocating the industrial units to Pakistan?
Well, when you talk to the investors here in Turkey, there are many companies that would like to invest in Pakistan. And, you know, it's primarily because of the sort of historical relations that have been there. Especially there's a certain ideological leaning here in Turkey, a certain quarter that would like to invest in Pakistan. They would want to see Pakistan benefit from that.
Abbas, Turkish foreign minister, tells reporters Pakistan has been a strategic partner of Turkey, and as there has been an unshakable friendship and brotherhood between the two people who supported each other. Do you feel people-to-people contact might remove the hindrances that you've talked about beforehand as well, and move towards kind of, relocating the problems and working towards them, and maybe strengthening contacts in fields that have been highlighted by the dignitaries during the visit of the Turkish foreign minister?
Yes, for sure. I think just before that, I'd like to just comment on the previous questions as well.
Okay.
When it comes to political stability, Pakistan classifies itself as a democratic nation. I think one of the concerns that a lot of countries, including Turkey, might have is that we are currently operating as an authoritarian regime. We need to move towards things like, the liberation of unions. We need to promote arts and culture activities, which is also
I think
going
some
to...
of those measures are being taken, Abbas, if I'm not wrong.
They are, but I think we need to be much more forceful on those things.
But I think, Abbas, all countries, in my point of view, have their own issues, from the United States to the European Union to even Turkey. They all have their sets of issues, and we've seen what all the turmoil Turkey has also gone through, and it has overcome that turmoil. I think what we need to do is overcome issues and work together in order to not only strengthen our individual countries, but also work together to strengthen the avenues that could work for the benefit of both the countries. But when you look at trade, investment, technology, for example, do you feel the IT could be a sector that could be lucrative as far as both countries is concerned?
Yes, for sure. I think IT is a key sort of facet, especially right now. If you look at the freelancing market in Pakistan, it's really growing over time and in a rapid sort of a way. I think we can sort of double down on that by investing in our education sector, by investing in the sort of facilities, the infrastructure, investing in faculty members in particular, and also like moving towards a situation where our universities are not controlled on the whims of the vice chancellors that are just operating on their sort of power within those contexts. We need to liberate student unions within universities so that those entrenched power structures can be sort of challenged a little bit, and we move towards a democratic sort of education system. We saw India do this during the sort of Nehru administration when they sort of invested heavily in
we
their
can't talk of India in that manner because
sector.
India itself is an authoritarian regime right now as we speak, and the way that it is moving along.
This is true.
Despite it being economically strong, it's still an authoritarian regime. Can't be called a democracy. What avenues do you feel, as an economist, both countries could work towards, apart from those that have already been discussed? Do you feel there are some things that both countries are adept at, working towards?
I think one of the key things that we can focus on as Pakistan, one of our top 3 exports to Turkey are cotton-based exports, which have to do with our agricultural sector. So in order to move towards a situation where we have improved productivity in our agricultural sector, we need to redistribute land. We have a very immense kind of concentration of land. I believe the stat is 5% of landlords own 65% of the farmland. If we move towards redistributing land, we will improve agricultural productivity. We will have more inputs for the manufacturing sector, and we can move towards value-added products when we export to places like Turkey and so on. I think that would be a great avenue to explore. It would also have positive consequences for the political domain, because the system of electables that we have in place currently are contingent upon this concentration of landlords. And so that would also be sort of addressed through those land redistribution initiatives.
I think that could be a good point of commonality between the two countries. Finally, Hassan, I'd like to understand whether it be the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be Northern Cyprus, whether it be Gaza, Palestine in the current situation, both the countries have a very strong commonality of views, of viewpoints on how to move forward as far as this is concerned. Turkey has always supported Pakistan's viewpoint on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan has supported Turkey's stance on Northern Cyprus. Similarly, on Gaza, on Palestine, both the countries want an unconditional and immediate ceasefire and humanitarian aid to be given to the Palestinian populace, and of course the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. How important is this commonality of views, and how can both these countries move these to a larger platform and work towards these causes more diligently or more ferociously, should I add, or more aggressively maybe?
Well, I think symbolically this can be important, number one. Secondly, let's not forget that countries have a tendency to use this as a sort of currency, especially when it comes to dealing with their domestic audience. For example, Turkey pointing out that there are a number of countries that are supporting it as far as its position on Northern Cyprus is concerned. Similarly, Pakistan saying, the government of Pakistan saying that you have countries like Turkey that are supporting it when it comes to, for example, the case of Kashmir. But when it comes to actual policies, when it comes to their relations with actors, some of whom might be viewed as antagonistic by others, this is where realpolitik kicks in. So, for example, there's a certain extent to which Pakistan can go when it comes to providing or adopting the Turkish position on northern Cyprus, because Pakistan has its concerns vis-a-vis the European Union and the EU markets as well. Pakistan understands that if it goes too far in its support for the TRNC, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, then it could run into difficulties with the European Union. So I think this is where that pragmatism comes in, but symbolically, yes, it's important.
All right. Thank you so very much, Hassan Abdullah, to have joined us all the way from Turkey, diplomatic correspondent for TRT World. We'll see you inshallah very soon. Finally, Hassan, when you look at both, he was just talking about the bilateral trade between other countries in the region and Turkey, and of course how Pakistan and Turkey had resolved to increase this beforehand but have not achieved to it. In your point of view, what are the measures as far as our industrial growth are concerned, or our trade is concerned, or our technology is concerned, or other points of, how should I say, bridging together both the countries is concerned? What would be the 3 important points that need to be undertaken by Pakistan to attract more investment? Ease of doing business, I think, is one for all investors, whosoever comes to be able to install his company or his organization very easily without going to 10 different places. What are the other points?
So I think one of the very basic things that we should do in order to facilitate investment is look at our financial sector. Our financial sector is structured in a way that it is heavily reliant on credit lines to the government via the risk-free bonds that they're constantly giving out. We need to move away from that and towards credit, towards individual level entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs with good ideas. We have the small and medium enterprises.
That is developing at a very rapid pace.
Yes, exactly. So if we were to regulate the financial sector and direct credit towards the SME sector, that would be a great initiative, including marginalized communities as well. I think we need to move towards accommodating them and sort of including them in the financial sector so that they can also be involved in commercial activity. The second point is that I think Pakistan suffers from an excess of regulatory sort of requirements on businesses that are operating over here. So I think we need to move towards a situation where the regulations that are in place have a justification for them. Otherwise, we need to remove those. PIDE has a great series of studies on this called the Sludge series, which I would talk to different experts before. Yes, exactly. So those would be interesting for your audience to take a look at. On the other hand, I think we need to also look at the way our cities are structured. PIDE estimates that we can generate investments of around $58 billion over the course of 5 to 6 years in investments. If we were to take the sort of the houses of bureaucrats that are concentrated in cities and turn those into high-rise, mixed-use
that is wonderful. I'm sorry you were a bit short of time, or I should have continued with that. Abbas, thank you very much. Dr. Abbas Moosvi, Research Fellow at PIDE. Do give my regards to all of your colleagues. Finally, very quickly, the news: Iran has declared 5 days of mourning in memory of President Dr. Ebrahimraisi, Foreign Minister Mr. Hussein Amir Abdullah, and other Iranian officials who were killed in a helicopter crash. A day of national mourning is also being observed in Pakistan to express fraternal solidarity on behalf of the government and the people of Pakistan on the request of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Also, the Federal Cabinet has passed a condolence resolution on the martyrdom of the Iranian president. The meeting was chaired by Prime Minister and paid tribute to the Iranian president for his immense services for the promotion of Pakistan-Iran relations as well as regional cooperation. Mr. Raisi is going to be buried in Mashhad, the city where he was born, on Thursday. That is, of course, State TV has been reported. Then we are going to talk about Sirbazkhan, who has successfully submitted Mount Everest without the use of supplemental oxygen. Of course, this is at a height of 29,031 feet. He was part of the Imagine Nepal 2024 Everest expedition team, which included 14 international climbers and 18 Sherpas. He has now climbed 13 of the world's 14 mountains that are higher than 8,000 meters and wants to climb the 14th as well. Finally, the International Tea Day is being observed today. The theme this year is women and their role as far as tea sector is concerned, which of course provides an opportunity not only to celebrate the cultural heritage of different regions where the tea is produced and drunk, and of course the health benefits and economic importance of tea. Do think about that, and there's a huge page on the United Nations as far as the benefits of tea and the importance of tea, economic and otherwise, is concerned. With that, we come to end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.